How's everybody doing this morning?
Good.
Good to be with you guys. If we had a good weekend, any victories? Any wins? Anybody just like, I gotta share?
I'll share one.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I listed a cabin in Duchesne back in January because I needed a listing. So I
Okay.
went clear out to Duchesne and I listed it high and I did everything wrong. And the listing came towards expiration, and I waited for the summer season to hit because I thought it'd be, it's being a cabin, people would be shopping when the weather clears up. And we were priced at $750,000. I got them to reduce it to $650,000. Still nothing. And I convinced the old guy, somewhere between a playboy and a cowboy he was,
Right.
that he should dramatically underprice it. And we priced it at $450,000. I think about a month ago, maybe a little less. And I said, people will come and we'll get feedback and someone will rise to the top and you'll know what the market value of your property is. And we went under contract this weekend at $550,000, which we probably never would have got there coming down and down and down. I would have $650 to $620 to $610, $600, and then when we reduced the price, I asked them for a 90-day extension on the listing, so that gave me the time to get that contract.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
Good job.
Very cool. It is interesting how those mountain properties or cabin properties are selling right now.
Yeah.
It's I mean, just having sold one myself, a family property up at Cottonwood Canyon, I was actually quite shocked, actually. I mean,
Price or?
Yeah, how much it went for.
Yeah.
And how quickly it went.
Hey, people want to get off the grid.
I know. That's cool. All right. Anything else?
I had a good call, but it was kind of like a aha to me. It was someone that I had sold the property to in 2009, kept in touch with them for 5 years, but they weren't going anywhere. They never referred me, so they kind of fell off my radar. Called and said, hey Brenda, Liz and I got divorced a year ago. We're still living in the house. Now we're going our separate ways. Can you help us sell? Oh, yes.
Very cool.
So that was
Not cool
one.
about the divorce,
No,
but
not cool, but
I'm
like,
I get it.
my first call is.
That's my
have
whole
you-
point. I always say that divorce, death, I mean, the list goes on and on of, there are opportunities everywhere. The
Everywhere.
problem is people are not talking to enough people.
But it was so funny when he called me, I'm like, and you're both living in the house for 1 year? He's like, yeah, it's amazing. I'm like, that is amazing.
Yeah.
And he's moving to Kanab, and I'm gonna get a referral. And I said, and where's Liz going? Well, she's going out of state. And I said, is she gonna buy? I mean, you have to ask these
course.
questions. No, she's gonna just live with her sister for a minute. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity that we have to just look for them.
Good for you. That's
That's
great.
good.
Congrats. That's great. So earlier on the base camp last week, I talked about the power of just our mindset, and I've described mindset, and here we are, Motivation Monday mindset, you name it. But I just want to focus just for a second, just on I almost want to say the mind. And a lot of times, certainly, your mind can be your best friend, it can be your worst enemy. And the combination between what you think and what you feel often becomes the guidance system to your life. And the stronger your alignment is with what you feel and what you do and what you actually think, the more integrated you are into a better life in almost every scenario. And it may not fit the path of one person to the next, but the key is, can you be in alignment with yourself? And so much of that has to do with your mind. That's one, at least, aspect of the mind, right? We solve problems with our mind, we protect ourselves with our mind, and there's all these different things that we do. But there's also this element of what you may think and what you may believe about yourself. And so oftentimes we'll call this things like mental toughness. We'll talk about it being in a place of certainty. Words might be in a space of confidence, but so much of it is what you think about yourself and about how you're proceeding in your life. And a lot of people, and not to be confused, not, I really don't want to go down this pathway, but not to be confused with ego, but meaning that you're thinking you really are more than you are, or where they talk about the fact that, I said this last week also, you could have the tallest building in the entire city by either tearing down someone else's or building your own. And setting just simply the ego aside, the ability to be tough mentally, the ability to believe in yourself, the ability to have some level of certainty and a level of confidence within yourself is a really powerful thing. And sometimes there's things, as we all know, there's disappointments that happen in life, whether it's a deal that goes awry, a deal that goes sideways. It could be the difficulty of learning the skill sets and mastering and developing your ability to succeed in this business through whether it's the skills, the disciplines, the conversion process. And there's all these things that are happening throughout our lives. And if you're like me, at least I have these, there's days where I feel like $1 million, and then I'll wake up the very next day and feel like the world is coming down on me. And in the midst of all of that, you still have this requirement, I guess you'd say, to perform, to succeed, to work, to go about this. And you see a lot of people where they'll use things that they can escape themselves with, or they can escape through drugs, alcohol, overindulgence in food, play, could be overindulgence even in golf, as an example, or sport. It could be that you're living a life where you're trying to escape. And years ago, I remember, I don't remember where I was, but I remember I came up with this thought that I said, gosh, you know what? Am I going to live the life that I've been blessed with and been given, or am I going to try to live my life by constantly trying to escape it? And if you're also, I think, just in humanity, it's almost like no matter where you are, you want to always try to be somewhere else. If you're here, you're thinking you should be there. And you're thinking, well, if I'm doing this, maybe I should be doing that. And so I think that the idea of words like the calming of the mind, the quieting of the mind, the stillness of the mind, to be in a place of peace, to be in a place of serenity. In fact, if you have a chance ever to go to Egypt, which I would encourage you to go because it was pretty incredible. I spent about 10 days with my father, who's passed last year, and Mackenzie, when she was 14 years old, she wanted to go to Egypt. And so we spent an entire, nearly, I think it was like 11 or 12 days, but it was almost 2 weeks just on the Nile on this river cruise. And over again, you would go down, of course, the river. And what's always bizarre, if you look at a map, I'm always thinking things are going down. What is always interesting is when you're in Africa, the Nile actually, at least when you're looking at the map, is going up. Because it's emptying into the Mediterranean, right? But anyway, as we're in the river and we're going along, you'd come up on, of course, temple after temple, and you'd come across pharaoh after pharaoh, and you'd come across the Ramsey pharaoh, whatever. And if you were to look it up, if I was to put it up on a screen, you would see that the pharaoh always had no matter what it was, no matter what dynasty it was a very straight-lipped, not a smile, not a frown, but completely level. And Kenzie and I last week were talking about this, and I said, because if the pharaoh had a frowny face, right, in so many words, it would appear that they were mean or upset or unsettled. If it was happy, it would mean that they were probably a little weak, a little too jovial, too much excitement. And so they would, every single, statues, as tall as this building, literally, every single time the pharaoh's mouth would always be straight across. And it was always, and for some reason it caught my attention when I was there. Of course, the internet wasn't as active or prevalent to be able to look it up. But it is fascinating that these pharaohs wanted to stay in a state of serenity, is as they describe it, a state of peace. And so I just want to point out that I look at over the last nearly 17 years of building Everest, and some of the most darkest moments of my life have been over the last 17 years. It could be the passing of loved ones. It could be the loss of people I care for. It's the highs and the lows of the market. It's the good and the bad of family interactions and the process of just having a family and the highs and the lows, friendships coming and going. I mean, you name it. Business associations coming and going, good things happening, bad things happening. And so life is constantly coming at you. And Jim Rohn said years ago, he said that you have to be the watcher or the keeper of your mind. And as you start looking and you start thinking about your mind, it's not, I've said this a lot to a lot of people over the years. People say, well, gosh, George, how come you're so strong mentally? And I said, well, first and foremost, somehow you're thinking that I'm not having the same challenges as anyone else. And I said, let's first set that assumption. I go, do you not think that I'm having challenges or having problems? And I remember years ago, many of you, of course, know, I think all of you know, and Aaron Pearson. And I remember Aaron Pearson probably 15, 16 years ago coming and saying, it dawned on me, son, I realized something. I said, well, what did you realize? He said, I realized that you were going through the same crap and the same problems and challenges as I was going through during the crash of the market of 07, 8, 9, and 10 and whatnot. And I said, yeah. He said, but you managed it very differently. I said, yeah. And so I started realizing as I've been reflecting on this, and Jay had sent me a text and said, hey, what about these 12 things? I'm not going to list the 12 things, but I want to list the 3. And the obvious is read, study, listen, participate, things of that sort. But there's 3 things that became really specific to me during some of the most challenging economic times of my life, and also some of the most difficult moments of my life, either with my health and most significantly, my relationship with Jennifer. And each one of those segments, whether it was over the last 15 or 17 years specifically, whether it was the relationship with Jennifer, whether it was some of the major health crises that I was dealing with, and of course, the major economic crises and challenges that were going on. And I want to point out that you're not going to get out of this life without, I believe, challenges in all 3 of those areas of your life. And I think that to be naive, to believe that you're the only one who has those challenges is the great misnomer. And I've always appreciated the statement of W. Clement Stone, who was mentored specifically by Napoleon Hill. W. Clement Stone then mentored Earl Nightingale. Earl Nightingale then mentored a Mike Ferry. I like to believe and say, gosh, for years I was mentored by Mike. So there's really this history, this legacy that has occurred, at least in my life, in relationship to these things. And W. Clement Stone taught this principle, and this isn't necessarily new for a few of you who have been around me for a while, but E plus R equals O. And what W. Clement Stone, who was a legendary life insurance salesperson, by the way, that was where they put themselves on the map. That's what Earl Nightingale did, and then he became the motivational speaker and the father of motivation as we know it. And if you haven't listened to Lead the Field and The Strangest Secret, those are the staples. You should be listening to them often. But E plus R equals O, and E stands for the events. The one thing you cannot control is the events. Deals going sideways will happen. Economic challenges, the economy will always be happening. There will be events that happen in your life. The real determining factor as to how resilient you are is the way in which you respond to those events. That's the difference maker. It's not that you have a deal that goes sideways. It's not that you have a crisis in a relationship. It's not that you have challenges throughout your life. That is a given for every single one of us in this room and online. You're going to have challenges. Events are going to occur in your life that you legitimately have no control over. And there'll be some that you probably do, but the reality is a lot of them will happen in your life that you have no control over. So if events are going to occur in your life, the real determining factor is how will you respond? How will you respond and even react to these things in relationship to creating O, which is the outcome of your life, the outcome of your future. And so recognizing that if you can't control every event, if you can't control all the challenging circumstances of life, which no one can. But what can you control is the way in which you respond. And so I would just point out, I've been on this planet for 54 and a half years, and my observation is the difference maker is how you choose to respond. And I would just say that I can't say that by no means would I say I have perfected that process, but there are at least signs that I am getting closer to responding better when life's challenges and events come at me. And things like when I bought the company in California and all hell was breaking loose, I still distinctly remember the previous owner saying, "George, does anything get to you?" Because it was so crazy. And I was just calm. And for me, I just have a visual because I, of course, spent 11 or so days on the Nile River looking at and seeing all of these pharaohs. And they stayed in this space of serenity. And they stayed in this space of peace, even in turbulent times, at least as the statues showed. And so I just want to point out that if you will take personal responsibility the way you respond with the circumstances that are happening in your life, you have a really good chance of succeeding at an extraordinary level. And part of that success is your peace. Part of that success is the joy. Part of it is the freedom from the challenge and all that comes with that. There's great reward in relationship to the way in which you choose, and again, I point out choose to respond. So back in 2009 and 10 and 11, especially 2009 and 10 were probably the most challenging. I can remember that it seemed like the pain and the agony of this business was so extreme that I had to start doing a few things. Number one is I had to start negotiations with myself. I had to negotiate. And what I had to negotiate was where I chose to do this, where I chose to focus. And I just want to point out that every single one of you has the choice to choose where you put your focus. Now, a lot of people say, well, what do you mean by that? Some people, I'll say things, and others will say, rewrite your story, right? Think differently, choose differently, talk differently. But all of it has to do with where you choose to focus. And if I look back in 2009, and I distinctly remember there was a set of stairs in this little office condo we had. We had the first set, there was a little landing, and then or stairs and landing, and then you'd walk up to the next little flight of stairs just over there on 1300 East. And as I would walk in, I would have this mantra, and the mantra for me is that I could do anything for 90 days. I have said I can do anything for 90 days, meaning 3 months, for nearly my entire career. For nearly my entire career, I can do anything for 90 days. Kind of just my mantra. Well, life got so difficult that I started saying to myself, I can do anything for 30 days. And I thought, I can do anything for a month. I don't even have enough vision. I'd set these goals, and I'd be like, I can't even see that far. But I could see 30 days. And so I would say to myself, I can do anything for 30 days. I can handle the pain, the agony, the highs, the lows, the good, the bad. I can do all of it. I can do at least all of this for at least 30 days. Well, as the world, and it seemed economically, just started to put more and more and more and more pressure, I started moving to I can do anything for 30 days to where I can do anything for a week. And then it got so bleak economically, so dark, so heavy that I started saying, Andy, you know what? I can do anything. It got this to this. I used to say I can do anything for a day. But then I got to the fact that I couldn't even see that the day was going to be good. So I said, finally, I got a reprieve to where I could say I can do anything for this morning. And I used to say I can do anything for 3 hours. That is as far as I could see how far I could go. And so I started negotiating with myself. Now, there's other things I say, things like I can do more, I can handle more, I'm unstoppable, right? It doesn't matter how I feel, I can do it anyways. All of these statements are all negotiations with yourself as to where, in simple form, where do you choose to put your focus? And the challenge is that if you aren't conscious and aware of where you choose to put your focus, because it's always a choice, you can say, oh, I wasn't thinking. Yeah, but you chose not to think. You chose not to be aware. You chose to be ignorant. You chose to ignore. Those are choices. Because every day you get the chance, every hour, every minute, you get the chance to negotiate with yourself, or at least awaken yourself to where you choose to focus. So the first thing I would mention to anybody mentally is, where do you choose to put your focus? Where? What is it that you say to yourself? What is it you're speaking to yourself? What is that voice that you allow it? We all have it. We all have that voice inside of us. Where do you choose to let it go? And the thing is that if you go down into the rabbit hole or the black hole and the abyss of all the negatives, all the poison, all the challenge, all the disappointment, and you stay there, I'm not asking you to be naive. I'm asking you to call things as they are, not worse they are, not better they are. If you're poor, if you're broke, if you don't have deals, acknowledge, I don't have deals. Now the question isn't, don't you have deals? The question is, now what are you gonna do after that? Is your best about to come? Are things like statements you're making that life is happening for you, not to you? When disappointment arises, do you sit there and say, this always happens to me? Or is your statement, what am I supposed to learn from this? Every one of us has the power to negotiate with ourselves so that our focus allows us, in my opinion, to do the one thing that I think is critically important to sales, which is to stay, you can describe it other ways, but to stay in the light, to stay bright, open, to not be constricted, to not be depressed, to not be sad, to not be stressed, to not be fearful. All of those things are the very opposite. For me, I like to say stay in the light. If you're Tony Robbins, he says stay in a beautiful what? State, which again has to do with where you choose to put your focus. So whatever your mantra is, I'm not necessarily concerned about that. What I'm concerned about is, do you allow yourself to just wander in your mind, and that whatever is impacting it is what you allow, or do you take control? It's like just swiping up through Instagram or Facebook, and it's just whatever you throw on and whatever media wants to come out there, whether you go onto YouTube, it's just, that's everyone outside of you controlling you. The narrative, where you put your focus, where you put your energy, what you see, what you look at, what you listen to, what you hear, all of it has to do with someone else outside of you. But if you don't take charge of the response to get a different outcome, well, then you're at the victimization of this world. And so I just would challenge every one of us to get really serious about where we choose to focus, and where we choose to put that has everything to do with our outcome. That's the first thing. The second thing I'm going to encourage you is that way back in the day, I became obsessed with this, and that is a journal. But it's not the journal that was the obsession, it was the expressing. The expressing of myself. Oops. The ability to express myself. Now, of course, you can say those things out loud, but there is great power in your writing. There is, when things are going the right direction, I always know I am writing and expressing myself more than I usually am. And you may say, well, what do you mean? I'm expressing my challenges. I'm expressing my disappointments. I'm expressing what I'm, then I say, okay, those are the disappointments, the challenges, the frustrations. Okay, now what's the answer to those things? And then I start using words. People always go, well, what do you journal about? No, yet today I wrote in that my daughter starts at the University of Utah today, but normally it's not historical stuff that I'm putting in there as a general statement. I might put a few things in my journal like that, but I'm not like, it's a beautiful day, I'm sitting on this rock, and I'm just pondering life's great challenge. I mean, no, I'm not writing like I'm some poet. I'm doing this. This is what most people are going on in their brain. Why is this happening to me? Why is it not working out? And that is nothing but a whining that is going on inside of you. There is no solution. So in my journal, number one is I express myself. Number two, I ask questions. And I have said this for years. I believe that the questions are more important than even the answers. And how do I ask questions? It started off, by the way, the aha on this was on a plane, analyzing and thinking about expressing within myself how I was being as a father, how I was for Kenzie, how I was showing up. And I realized, man, that's not how I want to show up. And so then I started asking a better question. That day I asked, well, what makes a great father? So I believe that questions in your journal start off with what, when, and how. What type of relationship do I want with my children? What type of father do I want to become? Oh, and the other one I love, let me just add the fourth. Who? Who do I want to become? Who must I become to sell 50 homes a year? What must I do to sell 50 homes a year? How do I create the pathway to 50 homes a year? Well, that's a lot better question than, why can't I figure out how to sell 50 homes a year? Why? And I would argue that I don't know if it matters why. Now, do I think you can never ask why? No. Do I think that you could use it effectively? Yes. But I don't see a lot of people use the word why very effective. It's rarely, there's so much emotion and there's almost no solutions that come with it. Even when you say, why is it not working? Yes, you can identify the challenges, but then you're still gonna have to come back to what you have to do, Andy. Once you figure out why, what do you have to come back to? What and how and when and who. Those are the solutions. You might want to say, well, I want to look at the roadmap of why I did what I did, which I do ask a question, but I still ask it this way. How did I come to this point? How did I get here? What were the breadcrumbs? Oh, you didn't wake up on time. Oh, you didn't exercise. Oh, your nutrition this. Oh, you know what? You didn't prospect. And you can say that, and you can look at the breadcrumbs of the how or the why, but the real answer comes into when you say, what must I do? Who must I become? When must I prospect? What is it that's going to make the difference? All of a sudden, solutions come. So my journal has become basically my blueprint. It's become my ability to navigate my life. And so the reality is that if you aren't using a journal, I would suspect that you're not asking yourself very good questions. And how do you become a critical thinker? I just gave you the answer. How do you become a critical thinker, Aubrey?
Ask great questions.
Ask questions. He might even, he said, great. I don't even know if they're great, but at least ask. Because you can't become a great thinker and solve problems if you aren't even asking the question. I mean, have you taken your journal and just asked yourself, this is what I did, Andy. What does a seller want? Oh, You may say, well, isn't that common sense? I don't know, is it? Seems like the most uncommon thing is common sense. What does a seller want? What does a buyer want? Who do I have to be as an agent to fulfill what they want? All of a sudden, the solutions, you're writing them down instead of, well, I heard someone say and someone else said, and I heard that. Well, yeah, you can pull that in and use that as part of your repertoire. But the reality is that what happens if you decided what was necessary? What if you asked the question, who must I become, or who do I need to become to earn a certain amount of money? By the way, we all know who you are today, because that's how much money we each and every one of us earn. That's me, that's you. We are always in alignment with what we're earning, because it's who you are. So whatever if it's zero, that means, by the way, if you're earning zero, you are of zero value to the economics of this world. You say, oh my gosh, that's so mean. Is it? Is it? Your value of what you bring to the marketplace is in direct correlation to the value of who you are. You may say, that's really rude. I don't know, is it? It isn't rude. It's just reality. Now the question is, if you have reality, then what, when, who, how? Then all of a sudden you get serious in your journal and you start mapping out a better life. Everything is within your control. We're running out of time, but just this last thing, the 3 things I told you. The third is meditate. Taste. No, eat. Or not EI. On my back porch this morning as I was meditating, I was thinking about the fact of how important it is to set the intentions of your life. I want you to imagine today that if all you did was these 3 things, and if I was at a close fourth, by the way, and you guys are doing it online and here as you're participating, because who you spend your time with matters, all right? But meditation is about setting the course for the future, guys. A lot of you will say, I'm not really into meditating. What I would tell you is that's because you are not quieting your mind, and you may say, well, is that relevant? I would tell you half of my career I've meditated and half of I haven't. I only wish I would have known about it the other 15 or plus years before that. My observation is that you will go into meditative states, whether you go to a church, a temple, you sit in a quiet moment. Those are meditative states. You go on a walk. You go into a meditative walk, right? Deep thought, evaluation, thinking. I think my journaling, for me at least, often becomes very meditative. But what if you got really serious about quieting your mind so that it wasn't all about what you can't do? It is a fact, provable from a place of science, that if you do not set a new intention or an intention for the day, you will think and you will feel all the same things day after day, because we are creatures of habit. So you will repeat the same thoughts, the same problems, the same outcomes if you don't get serious. And for me, meditation is about setting the intention. Yes, it's about quieting the mind, which is the mindfulness part. But there's a cognitive part to meditation that people somehow forget. What if you were guided and directed from within you? What if whether you just went about your day, what if you went about your day knowing that you'd set a clear intention and you had complete peace, serenity, confidence, and belief? So summing up, and then any thoughts you guys have, but I just want to come back to what I started with. The reason to do this is because people only allow themselves to be led by people who are in a state of confidence and strength. People only allow people to lead them when they know that they're certain about what they are, meaning you as a salesperson, as a leader in this industry. So if you want to lead more people, you better have a space of absolute confidence. You want more deals, you want more opportunities, you want more things drawn to you, then you have to make sure that you're paying attention to what you're saying and where you put your focus, what you're journaling and how you're expressing yourself, and how you're meditating and setting your intentions. Well, quieting of the mind, because life can be a lot better when it's a little more quiet, but more importantly, or maybe equally as important, is the cognitive part of that, which is where you set your intentions, where you solve your problems. So by the way, what I've always appreciated about meditation is not that problems don't go away with meditation. It's not like, abracadabra, I meditated and now I have no problems. That's not what meditation's about. Meditation is turning down the volume of the noise. And some of us have a lot of noise inside of our heads. I do. If I don't quiet my mind so I can set a better intention so that when my mind is solidly quiet and I am present, if I'm not in that space, it is really hard to navigate a great life. It is hard to navigate amidst all the noise and the chaos. But when you meditate, you have a moment of gratitude, a moment of stillness, a moment of setting the intention, meaning seeing the vision of your life. And you are literally rewiring your brain as to where you choose to put your focus, where you choose to put your intentions, your energies, your passions. And with a quiet mind, I have observed, at least in a lot of agents, there's almost nothing you cannot achieve. Truly. If I look at the most successful people on earth, at least as I would look at them and go, wow, economically, or the followings that they have. I just took two. If you haven't heard of him, a gentleman by the name of Ray Dalio, one of the richest men on earth. Net worth between 20 and 30 billion. He lost everything in 05, 20 years ago. He was like the cat's meow. He was on top of the world. To this day still, he will tell you, the only thing that brought him back was the power of his ability to meditate. I can tell you that is the message also of Tony Robbins. It is about the quieting and it is about the setting of intention. A clear vision with a quiet mind. That is a very powerful place to be. So just imagine if you said, I am going to negotiate with myself to stay in this light. I'm going to use tools like my journal and meditation to get myself to the highest level. What would your days look like? I'm going to suspect that they would look better than they have been. Because there's not one of you in here that should not be doing a lot of business, earning a lot of money, and having a lot of success. And the fact of the matter is that you truly are in the driver's seat. You cannot prevent the events, but you can choose how you respond to all of life's challenges, and you can create a whole different outcome because you chose to take responsibility as to how you were going to respond. Okay? All right, let's have an extraordinary day. Unless there's any closing thoughts.
I just want to say what resonated with all of this is how you think about things. I have a friend that went through a kind of a turbulent relationship. And at the end of it, she said, I wasted 2 years of my life. And immediately I went, no, you didn't. What did you learn? Maybe you wasted it, but what did you learn? And she had to stop and pause. And later she thanked me.
Of course.
Because it's all about, hey, my kids, oh, I had a flat tire and it ruins their whole day. I'm like, hey, if you're gonna have a car, you may have a flat tire. So why don't you be grateful for the fact you have a car?
Right.
So it's all about your attitude, your mindset, the events, your response, and there's your outcome.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I would add, it is the commitment to feeling good.
yeah,
And the challenge is that a lot of people are committed to not feeling good. Or they're so unconscious of the fact of not feeling good. People may say, well, wait, that's just how you spin it. That's just being the Pollyanna. That's just being way too positive. Well, hey, if you listen to people like Esther Hicks, she'll say, the purpose of her life, you know what it is, Jeff?
Experience.
To be happy. That's her saying. But what else? To be happy. No, but if you listen to her, no, really, Esther, like what else? To be happy.
so when someone says you're Pollyanna, someone told me that, and I'm like, well, what else is there? Like, why would you say that I'm Pollyanna? There is another option.
Right,
You can go down that road or you can go down this one.
correct.
So you wanna go down that one? Then you can be the negative Nelly, I'll be the Pollyanna.
Yep.
Well, I think Pollyanna is like a state of ignorance, like you know
Correct.
the
I-
hardships of life and you decide to stay on the good side of life. That's not Pollyanna.
Yep, I agree.
Pollyanna is
Exactly.
ignorant.
Yeah,
I agree.
ignorant.